The leather-clad bikers thought they were just following HOA orders to intimidate a single mother's teenage daughter. They revved their engines, blocked her car, and made their threats. What they didn't know was that Sarah Chen wasn't just any mother. She was a retired Marine Corps colonel with a network of brothers-in-arms who'd follow her into hell. And when they came for her daughter, they unleashed a storm they never saw coming. Sarah Chen stood at her kitchen window, watching her 17-year-old daughter Emma back out of the driveway in her beat-up Honda Civic. The morning sun caught the windshield just right, momentarily blinding Sarah to the 3 motorcycles parked across the street. By the time her vision cleared, Emma was already pulling onto Maple Drive, heading to her part-time job at the local bookstore. Sarah's phone buzzed against the granite counter. A text from Emma: "Love you, Mom. See you tonight." She smiled and typed back, "Drive safe, sweetheart." If Sarah had known those would be the last normal words they'd exchange for weeks, she might have said more. The first sign of trouble came 2 hours later when Sarah's phone exploded with notifications. Text after text, all from Emma: "Mom, something's wrong. There are men on motorcycles following me. They're not letting me drive, Mom. I'm scared. They're making me pull over. Help." Sarah's blood turned to ice. 23 years of military service had taught her to compartmentalize fear, to think tactically when adrenaline spiked. She grabbed her keys and was backing out of the garage before the last text finished sending. Her phone rang. Emma's contact photo, a goofy selfie from last week's hiking trip, filled the screen. "Emma? Where are you?" "Mom, I'm okay, I think." Emma's voice was shaky but controlled. Sarah felt a surge of pride. She'd raised her daughter to keep her head in a crisis. "I'm at the gas station on 5th Street. There are 3 guys on motorcycles. They blocked me in when I tried to leave the bookstore. They followed me here." "Are they threatening you directly?" "They're just watching. One of them keeps revving his engine every time I try to get back in my car. Mom, I don't understand what's happening." Sarah was already turning onto 5th Street. "I'm 2 minutes away. Stay where there are people. Don't engage with them." "There's something else," Emma said quietly. "One of them has a clipboard. He keeps pointing at it and then at me." A clipboard. Sarah's jaw tightened. This wasn't random harassment. She pulled into the gas station and immediately spotted the 3 Harley-Davidsons forming a loose semicircle around Emma's Honda. Her daughter stood near the store entrance, phone pressed to her ear, trying to look casual but clearly terrified. The bikers were exactly what central casting would order for intimidation: leather vests, bandanas, arms covered in tattoos that spoke of either military service or prison time. The largest of the 3, a man who probably went by something like Tank or Diesel, held a clipboard and was having an animated conversation with his companions. Sarah parked and walked directly toward them. 23 years of commanding. Marines had taught her that confidence was often the difference between conflict and resolution. "Gentlemen," she said, her voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed. "Is there a problem here?" Tank looked her up and down dismissively. "You the girl's mother?" "I am. And you are?" "We are here on official business." He held up the clipboard like a badge. "Hillcrest Gardens Homeowners Association has some concerns about your daughter's activities." Sarah stepped closer, letting her 5'6" frame carry the weight of 2 decades of command presence. What activities would those be? Parking violations, noise complaints, general disruption of community standards. Tank's voice had the rehearsed quality of someone reciting talking points. And the HOA sent 3 men on motorcycles to what exactly? To deliver this. Tank thrust a manila envelope toward her. Official notice of violation. Multiple infractions. Sarah took the envelope but didn't open it. "And you felt it necessary to intimidate my teenage daughter to deliver mail." "Nobody was intimidated," said the second biker, smaller but with dead eyes that suggested he'd seen real violence. "We were just making sure she understood the seriousness of the situation. By following her from her workplace and trapping her at a gas station." "Community standards are important," Tank said. "Some people need to learn respect." Emma had moved closer during the exchange, staying just behind Sarah's shoulder. "Smart girl." Sarah opened the envelope and scanned the documents. Citations for parking her car 6 inches over the property line, playing music too loudly, time-stamped at 3 p.m. on a Tuesday. walking her neighbor's dog without proper HOA approval. 4. Pet sitting, hosting more than 3 visitors at one time without advance notice. Each violation was meticulously documented, with photographs and timestamps. This wasn't bureaucratic overzealousness. This was harassment with a paper trail. These are remarkably detailed, Sarah said, keeping her voice level. Someone's been watching our house very carefully. The HOA takes its responsibilities seriously, Tank replied. We protect property values. We maintain standards. We. Sarah caught the word. Are you HOA board members or just muscle? Tank's face darkened. We are concerned citizens. And we are telling you that your family needs to get in line or face consequences. The threat hung in the air like smoke from their exhaust pipes. Sarah felt Emma tense behind her. What kind of consequences? The kind that make people want to move somewhere more suitable to their lifestyle. Sarah folded the citations and slipped them into her jacket pocket. Thank you for delivering these. We'll be sure to review them carefully. She turned to go, but Tank's voice stopped her. Mrs. Chen, a word of advice. The HOA board has been very patient with your family, but patience runs out, especially when some residents think rules don't apply to them. Rules should apply equally to everyone, Sarah replied without turning around. I'm sure you agree. Some people contribute to the community. Others just take up space and cause problems. Smart people know which category they are in. Sarah turned back, and something in her expression made all 3 bikers take an unconscious step backward. Are you threatening my family? I'm explaining reality, Tank said, but his voice had lost some of its swagger. This is a good neighborhood. Good people. We keep it that way. Sarah nodded slowly. I understand completely. Emma, let's go. They walked to their cars without another word, but Sarah could feel the bikers' eyes on them until they drove away. Mom, what was that about? Emma asked when they were safely home, both cars parked in the garage. Sarah spread the citations across the kitchen table. Someone wants us gone. But why? We've lived here for 3 years. We've never had problems. Before. Before what? Sarah studied the dates on the violations. They all fell within the last 6 weeks. What changed 6 weeks ago? Emma thought for a moment. That's when the new HOA board was elected. Mrs. Patterson and her friends won all the seats. Margaret Patterson. Sarah knew her by reputation, a woman who treated the Homeowners Association like a personal fiefdom. She'd been waging a campaign to upgrade the community standards ever since taking office. Mom, those guys, they weren't just delivering papers, were they? No, sweetheart. They were sending a message. What kind of message? Sarah looked at her daughter, brilliant, kind, hard-working Emma who'd never hurt anyone in her life, and felt something cold and sharp settle in her chest. The kind that says they don't know who they're dealing with. That evening, Sarah sat in her home office, staring at the citations. Each one was signed by Margaret Patterson as HOA board president. The photos showed intimate knowledge of their daily routines. Emma's car parked 2 inches over the property line at 7:23 a.m. when she left for school. Sarah's sound system clearly visible through the front window at 3:17 p.m. when she did her afternoon workout. Even a photo of Emma walking the Henderson's golden retriever, time-stamped and catalogued like evidence in a criminal case. Someone had been watching them, documenting them, building a case. Sarah's laptop chimed with an email. The sender was info@hillcrestgardenshoa.com. The subject line read, Final notice, compliance required. Mrs. Chen, as of today's delivery, your household has accumulated 17 violations of community standards in a 6-week period. This level of non-compliance is unprecedented and unacceptable. The board has voted to impose immediate sanctions, $200 per day fines for each ongoing violation, suspension of common area privileges, referral to legal counsel for potential litigation, consideration of forced sale procedures under HOA Covenant 47B. You have 72 hours to achieve full compliance with all cited violations and submit a written plan for maintaining community standards going forward. Failure to comply will result in escalated enforcement measures. Additionally, any harassment or intimidation of HOA board members or their representatives will result in immediate legal action. We trust you will make the right decision for your family and your community. Sincerely, Margaret Patterson, President, Hillcrest Gardens HOA. Sarah read the email twice, then opened her laptop's browser and began researching. Margaret Patterson's background. The other board members. The HOA's legal authority. Covenant 47B. What she found made her blood run cold. Covenant 47B was a legal mechanism that allowed the HOA to force the sale. Sarah woke at 0500 hours, as she had every morning for the past 25 years. Military habits died hard, but today she was grateful for the early start. She had work to do. Her phone showed 3 missed calls from Marcus Rodriguez, all time-stamped. After midnight. When she called back, he answered immediately. Jesus, Sarah, you didn't tell me how deep this rabbit hole goes. What did you find? Margaret Patterson isn't just some power-hungry HOA president. She's connected. Her husband, Richard, owns Patterson Development Group. They specialize in buying up residential properties for commercial conversion. Guess what they've been trying to build permits for? Tell me. A luxury shopping complex, right where Hillcrest Gardens currently sits. Sarah felt the pieces clicking into place. How many properties would they need? According to the zoning applications I found, at least 60% of the subdivision. That's 43 houses. Sarah, yours is smack in the middle of the footprint. And the others? That's where it gets interesting. Patterson has been systematically targeting specific homeowners over the past year. Always the same pattern: excessive violation citations, escalating fines, forced sales under Covenant 47B. She's already acquired 12 properties this way. Sarah opened her laptop and pulled up a map of the neighborhood. If Marcus was right, Patterson had been picking off houses like pieces on a chessboard. Strategic acquisitions creating a clear path toward the commercial development. What about the bikers? That's the scary part. They're not just hired muscle. Tank, real name Vincent Kowalski, is Patterson's brother-in-law. The other 2 are Danny Morrison and Lee Kruger. All 3 have records: assault, intimidation, extortion. They've been running this same scam in 3 other communities over the past 2 years. Other communities: Oakwood Estates in Colorado, Springs, Pinewood Heights in Fort Collins, Riverside Gardens in Boulder. Same pattern every time. Patterson Development identifies a target area. Margaret gets elected to the HOA board. Violations start piling up. The bikers show up to deliver notices, and families get scared enough to sell cheap. Sarah felt her jaw clench. How many families? Over 150. Sarah, this isn't just fraud. It's organized crime with a real estate license. What happened to the families who fought back? The pause on the other end told her everything. She needed to know. The Hendersons in Colorado Springs had their house burned down. Electrical fire, officially. The Martinez family in Boulder, their teenage son got jumped by 3 guys on motorcycles. Broke his ribs and his arm. No arrests. And the police? Either bought off or overwhelmed. These people are careful, Sarah. They stay just inside the legal boundaries until intimidation stops working. Then, Sarah looked out her window at Emma's car in the driveway. Her daughter was still sleeping, unaware that she'd become a target in a criminal enterprise disguised as community governance. Marcus, I need more than information. I need proof. The kind that holds up in federal court. Way ahead of you. I've got a forensic accountant tracing the money flows between Patterson Development and the HOA accounts. And Sarah, I'm sending Jake Morrison out to you today. Jake Morrison. FBI, retired. He specializes in RICO cases. If anyone can build a bulletproof case against these people, it's him. After hanging up, Sarah made coffee and sat at her kitchen table, studying the HOA violation notices with fresh eyes. Every citation was signed by Margaret Patterson. Every photo showed intimate knowledge of their routines. Every fine was calculated to push them toward the $10,000 threshold as quickly as possible. But now she saw something else: desperation. If Patterson was moving this aggressively, it meant she was under pressure. Development projects required financing, and financing required timelines. Someone was expecting results. Emma wandered into the kitchen at 7:30, already dressed for school. Morning, Mom. You're up early, even for you. Couldn't sleep. How are you feeling about yesterday? Scared, Emma said, pouring herself orange juice. But also angry. Those guys had no right to follow me around like that. No, they didn't. Em, I need you to be extra careful for the next few days. Don't go anywhere alone, okay? Stay with friends, stay in public places. Mom, you're scaring me. Sarah looked at her daughter, 17 years old, about to start her senior year, planning for college, and made a decision. Emma was old enough to know what they were facing. Sweetheart, those men yesterday weren't just delivering violation notices. They're part of something bigger. A group of people who want to force us out of our home. But why? Money. They want to tear down our neighborhood and build something else. They've done it before, to other families. Emma sat down across from her, suddenly looking much older than 17. What are we going to do? We are going to fight back. But I need you to trust me and follow my instructions exactly. Can you do that? Are we in danger? Sarah thought. About the Henderson house fire. About the Martinez boy in the hospital. Potentially. But your mom didn't survive 23 years in the Marines by backing down from bullies. Emma smiled for the first time since yesterday. What do you need me to do? For now, just be careful. I'm going to handle the rest. After Emma left for school, Sarah began her own reconnaissance mission. First stop, the office of David Kim. The attorney Marcus had recommended. Kim specialized in HOA disputes and had successfully challenged Patterson's tactics in Colorado Springs. Mrs. Chen, Kim said, reviewing the violation notices, this is textbook harassment. The photographs alone constitute stalking under state law, but proving the larger conspiracy will be more challenging. What do you need? Financial records showing money flowing between the HOA and Patterson development. Evidence of coordination between the board and the intimidation tactics. Testimony from other victims. I can get you all of that. Kim looked surprised. How? I have resources you might not expect. Her next stop was the Hillcrest Gardens HOA office, a small building near the community center. Sarah had never set foot inside before. She'd always paid her dues online and ignored the political drama. Now she realized that indifference had been a mistake. The receptionist, a nervous woman in her 50s, looked up as Sarah entered. Can I help you? I'd like to speak with Mrs. Patterson about some violation notices. Oh, Mrs. Patterson is in a meeting. Would you like to schedule an appointment? I'll wait. Sarah took a seat in the small lobby and studied her surroundings. The walls were covered with architectural renderings of future community improvements, a fitness center, expanded playground, professional landscaping. All projects that would require substantial funding. Through the thin walls, she could hear Margaret Patterson's voice. Timeline is non-negotiable. The investors are expecting to break ground by spring. We need at least 30 more properties. Another voice, male. The Chen woman could be a problem. She didn't look intimidated yesterday. Then we escalate. Vincent knows how to handle difficult residents. Sarah felt her blood pressure spike, but she kept her expression neutral when the receptionist glanced away. 20 minutes later, Margaret Patterson emerged from her office with two men Sarah didn't recognize. Patterson was exactly what Sarah had expected. Perfectly coiffed, expensive suit, the kind of smile that never reached the eyes. Mrs. Chen. What a surprise. I trust you received our correspondence. I did. I have some questions. Of course. Please, come into my office. Patterson's office was decorated like a corporate boardroom rather than a community organization. Awards and certificates covered one wall, but Sarah noticed they were all from development industry associations, not community service groups. Now then, Patterson said, settling behind her desk. I assume you're here to discuss compliance with the violation notices. Actually, I'm here to discuss your development plans for this property. Patterson's smile flickered for just a moment. I'm not sure what you mean. I mean the shopping complex your husband wants to build where our homes currently stand. Mrs. Chen, I think there's been some misunderstanding. The HOA exists solely to maintain community standards and property values. Is that why you forced 12 families to sell their homes in the past year? Now the smile disappeared entirely. Mrs. Chen, if residents choose to relocate because they find our community standards too restrictive, that's their decision. We don't force anyone to do anything. What about the Hendersons? Did they choose to have their house burned down? Patterson stood up abruptly. I think this meeting is over. If you have concerns about your violations, you can address them through the proper channels. You have 68 hours remaining to achieve compliance. Or what? You'll send your brother-in-law and his friends back to intimidate my daughter. Mrs. Chen, I have no idea what you're talking about. Now please leave my office. Sarah stood slowly, letting her full command presence fill the small room. Mrs. Patterson, you've made a serious error in judgment. You've threatened my family. That was a mistake. Are you threatening me? I'm informing you. This ends now. Drop the violations, call off your muscle, and find another neighborhood. To terrorize. Patterson's face flushed with anger. You have no idea who you're dealing with, Mrs. Chen. This community has standards. People who don't fit in, well, they find ways to leave. You're right. I don't think you know who. At 0600 hours, Sarah's doorbell rang. She opened it to find Master Sergeant Tony Reeves standing on her porch, duffel bag in hand, looking exactly as she remembered him from their last deployment in Afghanistan. Colonel, he said, snapping to attention with a grin. Heard you had some trouble with the locals. At ease, Sergeant. Come in. Behind Tony came four more figures, Staff Sergeant Maria Santos, Gunnery Sergeant James Wright, Sergeant First Class David Park, and Captain Lisa Chen, Sarah's sister and Emma's aunt, who had driven down from Denver with Emma safely in tow. You called in the A-team, Emma said, hugging her mother. Aunt Lisa wouldn't tell me what was happening, but she packed like we were going to war. We might be, Sarah said quietly. Over breakfast, Sarah briefed her team on the situation. These were people who had served with her in the most dangerous places on Earth, who understood tactics and operational security, who knew how to work outside official channels when necessary. So let me get this straight, Tony said, studying. The HOA violation notices. These civilians think they can intimidate Marines by sending some wannabe bikers to threaten your kid. That's the situation. Maria Santos, who had run psychological operations in 3 combat zones, was reviewing the audio recording Sarah had captured. This is textbook organized crime. RICO violations, conspiracy, extortion, racketeering. Federal charges across the board. The question is how to proceed, Sarah said. We have evidence, but we also have an immediate threat to Emma's safety. Captain Lisa Chen looked up from her laptop. I've been researching this Patterson development group. They're leveraged to the hilt. $2 million in loan shark money, plus another $3 million in construction loans contingent on acquiring the properties. If this development doesn't happen, they're bankrupt. Which means they're desperate, James Wright observed. Desperate people make stupid mistakes. Jake Morrison arrived at 0800, looking slightly overwhelmed by the sudden military presence in Sarah's living room. Mrs. Chen, when you said you had resources, I didn't expect the best people I've ever served with, Sarah said. Jake, meet my team. Jake spread out his legal analysis on the dining room table. With the evidence you gathered last night, we can have federal warrants issued within 48 hours. But that still leaves the immediate threat to your daughter. What immediate threat? Emma asked. Sarah hesitated, then decided her daughter deserved the truth. They're planning to hurt you tonight. To send me a message. Emma's face went pale, but her voice stayed steady. Then we stop them. You're staying here with your aunt and Sergeant Park. The rest of us are going hunting. Tony Reeves checked his watch. What's our timeline? Patterson's loan shark friends expect payment in 60 days, Sarah said. But according to what I heard last night, they're planning to escalate intimidation tactics immediately. Starting with Emma. Where and when? They don't know Emma's back home yet. They'll probably try to grab her when she leaves for school or work. Maria Santos was studying satellite images of the neighborhood on her tablet. This terrain favors us. Multiple exit routes, clear sight lines, plenty of cover. If we position correctly, we can control the entire engagement zone. Engagement zone. Jake looked alarmed. Mrs. Chen, I need to be clear, As a former federal agent, I cannot be party to any illegal activities. And you won't be, Sarah assured him. You're going to be at the courthouse filing for emergency restraining orders and expedited warrants. What happens in the field is strictly defensive. Defensive. Sarah smiled grimly. We are going to give these people exactly what they're asking for, a chance to commit federal crimes with multiple witnesses and recording devices present. At 1,000 hours, Sarah's phone rang. Margaret Patterson. Mrs. Chen, I understand you've been spreading malicious rumors about the HOA board. Have I? Several residents have contacted me with concerns about things you've allegedly said. False accusations about development schemes and criminal activity. Mrs. Patterson, everything I've said is documented fact. I'm calling to offer you one final opportunity to resolve this situation amicably. Drop your complaints, comply with the violation notices, and we can put this unfortunate misunderstanding behind us. And if I refuse? The pause was long enough to be threatening. Then I'm afraid the situation will have to be resolved differently. Is that a threat, Mrs. Patterson? It's a prediction, Mrs. Chen. Good day. Sarah hung up and turned to her team. They just confirmed hostile intent. Game on. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. Emma would leave the house at her normal time, driving her usual route to work. But instead of going alone, she'd have invisible escorts, Tony and James in a rental car, Maria positioned on a motorcycle with clear sight lines, and Sarah coordinating from a command position with full communications. The moment Pattersons people made their move, they'd be surrounded by trained operators with cameras recording everything. What if they don't take the bait? Emma asked. They will, Sarah said. They're under pressure, they're desperate, and they think they're dealing with a helpless single mother and her teenage daughter. Classic overconfidence. At 1,400 hours, David Park reported movement. 3 motorcycles just pulled out of Vincent Kowalski's driveway. They're staging near the community center. Copy. Maria, do you have eyes on them? Affirmative. Tank and his 2 usual suspects, plus 2 new players. Both look like ex-cons. Jake, are you recording this? Every word. I've got federal agents on standby and emergency response units positioned outside the immediate area. At 14:30, Emma kissed her mother goodbye and walked to her car, looking for all the world like a normal teenager heading to work. Sarah watched from her bedroom window, radio in hand, every muscle tense. Phoenix, this is Eagle 1. Tony's voice crackled through the comm package as mobile, heading south on Maple Drive. Copy. Eagle 1. Overwatch, report. 3 motorcycles. Moving to intercept, Maria reported. They're trying to box her in at the intersection of Maple and 5th. Eagle 2, position. In position, James confirmed. I have clear sight lines on all subjects. Sarah watched through binoculars as the motorcycles moved into formation around Emma's car. Just like before, they were trying to force her to pull over, but this time, Emma was ready. She continued driving, maintaining steady speed, while her invisible guardians closed in. They're getting aggressive, Maria reported. Lead rider is trying to force her into the gas station parking lot. Emma, can you hear me? Sarah spoke into her radio. I'm here, Mom. They're right next to me. Stay calm. Do exactly what we practiced. Emma pulled into the gas station, the same one where this had all started. But this time, Tank and his crew were walking into a trap. Phoenix, this is Eagle 1. We have 5 subjects dismounting. They're approaching the package. Sarah was already moving, heading for her car. I'm en route. Nobody moves until they make physical contact. Through her earpiece, she could hear the confrontation beginning. Well, Tank's voice, picked up by Emma's hidden microphone. Look who decided to come back home. I don't want any trouble, Emma said, playing her part perfectly. Trouble? We are just here to deliver a message to your mother. What message? The kind that requires a demonstration. Get in the truck. I'm not going anywhere with you. You don't have a choice, sweetheart. That was the trigger phrase. The moment Tank put his hands on Emma, 5 highly trained veterans, Moved simultaneously, Tony and James emerged from their car, moving with military precision. Maria roared into the parking lot on her motorcycle, cutting off the exit. David Park appeared from behind the gas station building, blocking the other escape route, and Sarah's car screeched into the lot, completing the encirclement. Tank spun around, suddenly realizing he was surrounded. What the hell? Sarah stepped out of her car, and Tank felt his knees go weak. She wasn't the same woman he'd faced yesterday. This was someone else entirely, someone who moved like violence incarnate, whose very presence radiated lethal competence. Vincent Kowalski, Sarah said, her voice carrying absolute authority. You're under citizen's arrest for attempted kidnapping, conspiracy, and violation of federal RICO statutes. You can't arrest me. I'm not doing anything wrong. You just attempted to force my daughter into your vehicle. That's kidnapping under Colorado state law. And you did it while being recorded by multiple devices. Tank looked around desperately. His companions were backing away, hands raised, clearly recognizing that they were severely outmatched. This is a setup. No, Mr. Kowalski. This is justice. Police sirens wailed in the distance. Jake Morrison had kept his word. Federal agents were en route. Everyone stay exactly where you are, Sarah commanded. Hands visible, no sudden movements. Tank made a last desperate play. You people have no authority. We are private citizens. So are we, Tony Reeves said, stepping forward. Private citizens with extensive military training who just witnessed you attempt to kidnap a minor. Emma, Sarah called. Are you hurt? I'm fine, Mom. But I think I got everything on video. Emma held up her phone, which had been recording the entire encounter. Tank's face went from red to grey. The first police car arrived within minutes, followed by unmarked federal vehicles. Jake Morrison emerged from one of them with FBI agent Rebecca Martinez. Agent Martinez, FBI, she announced. Everyone remain calm. We have arrest warrants for Vincent Kowalski, Daniel Moe. Richard Patterson's house sat on 2 acres at the end of Elm Street, surrounded by mature oak trees that provided excellent cover for someone who knew how to use terrain tactically. Unfortunately for Patterson, he was a real estate developer. Not a soldier, Sarah parked 3 blocks away and studied the police perimeter through binoculars. Local law enforcement had cordoned off the street, but their positioning was defensive, designed to contain Patterson, not neutralize him. SWAT's 15 minutes out, Tony reported, monitoring police frequencies. Local PD is treating this as a standard barricade situation. It's not standard, Sarah said grimly. Patterson's got nothing left to lose. His wife's in federal custody, his company's finished, he's facing bankruptcy and criminal charges. That makes him unpredictable. Her phone buzzed with another text. I can see your house from here. Nice bedroom window. Does your daughter sleep in the room facing the street? Sarah felt ice water in her veins. Patterson's house had a clear sight line to their neighborhood. If he had a rifle with decent optics. Maria, I need you to get to my house. Make sure all the curtains are closed, all the lights are off. If Patterson's planning a shooting spree, our home is target number 1. On it. Maria mounted her motorcycle and roared away. Jake Morrison's radio crackled. Federal units are en route, but they're 40 minutes out. Local commander is requesting we maintain distance until SWAT arrives. 40 minutes is too long, Sarah said. She was studying the tactical situation, automatically calculating fields of fire, cover positions, approach routes. Patterson's got high ground, clear sight lines, and probably enough ammunition to hold off a small army. So what's the play? James Wright asked. Sarah was quiet for a long moment, studying the house through her binoculars. Then she saw movement in an upstairs window, the glint of sunlight on glass that looked suspiciously like a rifle scope. His positioning for long-range shots, she said. Tony, can you get on the police frequency? I need to speak with the incident commander. Within minutes, Sarah was on the radio with Lieutenant Barnes, the local SWAT team leader. I appreciate your military experience, but this is a law enforcement matter now. Lieutenant, I understand your position, but I have information you need. Patterson isn't just barricaded, he's preparing for an offensive operation. What do you mean? He's threatened my family specifically. His house has clear sight lines. to multiple civilian targets. If he starts shooting, people will die before you can reach him. Our negotiator is trying to establish communication. Lieutenant, with respect, Patterson's not looking to negotiate. He's looking to take as many people with him as he can. Sarah's phone buzzed again. This time it was a photo, a view through a rifle scope showing the front of Emma's school, with students walking across the parking lot. Jesus Christ, Sarah breathed. Lieutenant, Patterson just sent me a photo of kids at Lincoln High School. Through a rifle scope. He's not just threatening my family, he's targeting civilians. The radio went silent for a moment. When Barnes came back, his voice was tense. Can you forward that image? Already done. Lieutenant, you need to evacuate that school now. And you need to understand, Patterson's not planning to survive this. He's planning a massacre. SWAT ETA is still 12 minutes. 12 minutes is too long. How many officers do you have on scene? 6 patrol units, 2 supervisors. What about suppressing fire? Can you keep him from getting clear shots at civilian targets? We are not equipped for a sustained firefight with a barricaded subject. Sarah looked at her team. Tony, James, and David were all checking their weapons, personal sidearms, nothing heavy, but they were professionals who could make every shot count. Lieutenant, I have 3 former military personnel with me. All combat veterans, all expert marksmen. We can provide suppressing fire to keep Patterson pinned down until SWAT arrives. I cannot authorize civilian involvement in. You're not authorizing anything. We are private citizens protecting our community from an active threat. Sarah switched to her team's tactical frequency. All right, people, here's the situation. Patterson's planning to shoot up a school. Local law enforcement is outgunned and outpositioned. SWAT's 12 minutes out. What's our objective? Tony asked. Containment and suppression. Keep him from getting clean shots at civilian targets until the cavalry arrives. Rules of engagement. Sarah thought about Emma's school photo, about the teenagers walking innocently across that parking lot, unaware that a madman was watching them through a rifle scope. Authorized to return fire if fired upon. Priority is civilian protection. David. Park was studying the house through a spotting scope. I count at least 3 positions where he could set up for long-range shots. Second floor windows facing south and east. Can we get close enough to be effective? There's a drainage ditch that runs within 200 meters of the house. Good. Cover, clear sight lines. Sarah's radio crackled with Jake Morrison's voice. Sarah, federal units are moving up their ETA. 25 minutes now. Too long. Jake, I need you to coordinate with local PD, make sure they understand we are friendlies. Sarah, be careful. If this goes sideways, it already went sideways. The moment Patterson decided to threaten civilians. Sarah turned to her team. Mount up. We are going to war. They moved through the drainage ditch like the combat veterans they were. Low, fast, silent. Sarah took point, with Tony and James flanking and David providing overwatch point 200 meters from Patterson's house. Sarah called a halt. Through her scope, she could see movement in the upstairs windows. Patterson was moving between positions, clearly agitated. Phoenix to all units, she whispered into her radio. Target has eyes on multiple firing positions. Estimate 3 to 4 rifles, unknown amount of ammunition. Her phone buzzed with another message. 5 minutes. Then I start with the school. Sarah forwarded the message to Lieutenant Barnes, then switched to her team frequency. Time's up. He's making his move. Through her binoculars, she watched Patterson appear at the eastern window, rifle in hand. He was aiming toward the school, nearly 2 miles away but well within range for a competent marksman with a decent rifle. Sarah didn't hesitate. Her first shot took out the window frame 6 inches from Patterson's head, sending glass and wood fragments flying. Patterson jerked back, losing his sight picture. Shots fired, she reported calmly. Suspect is suppressed but not neutralized. Patterson's return fire was immediate but poorly aimed, panic shooting that went wide and high. Tony and James opened up from their flanking positions, keeping Patterson pinned behind cover. Phoenix, this is Eagle 1, Tony reported. Subject is moving to secondary position. Sarah saw Patterson scrambling toward the southern window, dragging a rifle behind him. She put 3 quick rounds through that window as well, forcing him back. Good effect on target. Subject is contained. Lieutenant Banz's voice came through the radio. SWAT is 7 minutes out. Can you maintain suppression? Affirmative. As long as he doesn't try to engage civilian targets. But Patterson wasn't done. Sarah watched in horror as he appeared. At a third window, one they hadn't anticipated, with what looked like a semi-automatic rifle. He wasn't aiming at them. He was aiming toward the neighborhood. Sarah's blood ran cold as she realized what he was doing. Through her scope, she could see muzzle flashes from Patterson's rifle, and she knew exactly what he was shooting at. Her house, where Maria was supposed to be securing the perimeter. Maria, report. Sarah called into her radio static. Maria, respond. More static, then a weak voice. Phoenix, I'm hit. Patterson's got me pinned behind your garage. Took one in the shoulder. Sarah felt rage unlike anything she'd experienced since Afghanistan. Patterson wasn't just threatening civilians, he'd shot one of her people. Tony, James, maintain suppression on the primary target. David, you're with me. Where are you going? To end this. Sarah and David moved through the drainage ditch with lethal purpose. 23 years of military training took over, erasing everything except the mission. Protect the team, neutralize the threat. They reached a position with clear sight lines. To Patterson's house just as he appeared in the window again. Reloading his rifle. Sarah's scope found him immediately. Range, 180 meters. Wind, negligible. Target, stationary. It was an easy shot for someone with her training, but she hesitated. Shooting an armed suspect who was actively engaging in violence was legally justified. But once she pulled that trigger, there would be no going back. Patterson settled behind his rifle again, aiming toward the neighborhood. Through her scope, Sarah could see his finger tightening on the trigger. She made her decision. Her shot took Patterson's center mass, spinning him away from the window. The rifle clattered to the floor. Target neutralized, she reported calmly. The shooting stopped. An eerie silence settled over the suburban battlefield. SWAT is on scene, Lieutenant Barnes reported. Stand down and identify yourselves. Sarah and her team emerged from their positions with hands visible, weapons pointed safely downward. The SWAT team moved past them toward Patterson's house with professional efficiency. 5 minutes later, the all-clear came over the radio. Richard Patterson was down, wounded but alive, and no longer a threat. Sarah ran toward her house, where she found Maria sitting against the garage, field dressing a shoulder wound. How bad? Sarah asked. Through and through. Missed the